Welcome to the GameRamble video review for RUINER, narrated by me, DarkCloud. As always, the full text version of this review can be found on the GameRamble website linked below. The TLDR for RUINER is that it's a cyberpunk-themed isometric shooter with fast, brutal combat. The game is unforgiving, but players can unlock several abilities to help even the odds. Most of the game is spent locked into combat arenas, but the inclusion of a hub world offers a nice break from the action. Although it's not a very long game, it is very stylish, fun, and challenging. Gameplay receives an 8 out of 10. Skill is required to get far, but it's worth the effort. Graphics receives a 9 out of 10. The visuals are stylish and detailed, but the levels lack variety. Sound receives a 9 out of 10. The soundtrack is incredible and matches the action perfectly. The overall score for RUINER is 8.7 out of 10. And now for the full review. The year is 2091, and getting your brain hacked is just one of the perils of the cyberpunk world of RUINER. This is precisely the fate that befalls the protagonist of the game, who wakes up with a mask that he can't take off and a mission to assassinate someone known as the boss. However, a hacker named Her intervenes and instructs the protagonist to go on a rescue mission to save his brother instead. It's clear that the protagonist is being used by Her, who calls him Puppy, but with a lack of options he does as instructed, while murdering anyone who gets in his way. RUINER is the debut title of RUINER Games, which consists of seasoned developers who have worked on titles such as the Witcher series, Dead Island and Dying Light. The game is an isometric shooter where players must use firearms and melee weapons to overcome impossible odds. The first order of business is to find the man who originally hacked your brain, which involves fighting through the psychotic gangsters he hired to protect him. Things quickly escalate though, and Puppy will end up having to match skills with mercenaries, armed guards, cyborgs, and even AI foes. Although Puppy is a ruthless killing machine, enemies can easily overwhelm him. Thankfully, there are abilities and upgrades available that can help even the odds a bit. New skills are unlocked by earning experience and increasing your karma level. Players can then spend skill points to activate these abilities. Players can also use the skill points to upgrade each ability to make them even more potent. The great thing is that any ability or upgrade can be deactivated at any point, which allows you to retrieve the skill points and use them on a different ability. Abilities require energy to use, but can make a huge difference in battle. For example, the energy shield allows you to block projectiles for a short period, but can be upgraded so you can ram enemies with it as well. On the other hand, the kinetic barrier can also slow down enemies that pass through it, and deflect projectiles in random directions. Other abilities include hacking enemies to make them fight on your side, summoning supply drops, throwing stun grenades, and slowing down time, to name just a few. The ability to chop and change your skills anytime makes it easy to adapt to different situations and add some depth to the frantic combat. Most of RUINER involves fighting waves of enemies before taking on mini-bosses and bosses, but it also has a hub area in the form of Raincock. Here players can wander around and eavesdrop on conversations or take on side missions to earn extra karma. Raincock is relatively small and the side missions are reasonably simple, but it makes for a nice change of pace after slaughtering hordes of enemies. The actual combat in RUINER typically sees Puppy beset from all sides by enemies. His default weapons are a pipe and pistol with unlimited ammo, but players can also pick up anything enemies drop. There's quite a variety of weapons in the game, but they're only useful until they run out of bullets as they cannot be reloaded. Most enemies in the game are not only fast and deadly, but can teleport all over the place and shield against your attacks. This means that players must use every ability and trick at their disposal to survive the fights. Once dashing around enemies and retaliating becomes second nature, players can begin focusing on stringing together combos and improving the rating they received after every round of combat. Enemies can soak up a lot of damage, and one misstep can cost Puppy his life, but the checkpoints are generally quite generous. RUINER also features 3 difficulty settings, but players can expect a challenge even on normal. The game is relatively short, and we were looking at the credits after about 7 hours of playing on the normal difficulty. However, there's also a new plus mode, speedrun mode, and arena, which bolsters the replay value. Players can also unlock additional outfits in the arena coliseum. Visually, RUINER makes good use of Unreal Engine 4 to deliver a gritty cyberpunk vision of the future. Players can adjust the textures, anti-aliasing, shadows, post-processing and effects, and with everything set to max the game looks pretty good. As mentioned earlier, Raincock is quite a beautiful setting and the various underground levels look suitably dangerous and atmospheric. Unfortunately, there's not much variety when it comes to industrial looking catwalks and dingy corridors of the actual levels. Enemy designs are also good, but due to the fast pace and chaotic nature of combat, it's easy to get hit by stray bullets or explosions. The soundtrack to RUINER is easily one of the best parts of the game, with tunes by Sidewalks and Skeletons, Zamilska, Antigone and Francois X, DJ Aline, and more. Sasama Hirasawa is also featured on the soundtrack, and overall the music really adds to the game's atmosphere. The audio usually ramps up when players are locked into the combat arenas, and emerging victorious can feel like waking up from a trance because the music is so hypnotic. The sound effects are decent, although the weapon effects are not as overpowering as other isometric shooters. Speech is also a little sparse, but well used to encourage or mock players. Puppy himself is a man of no words, and his dialogue option in the infrequent conversations are usually either shrugging or cracking his knuckles. He does wear his emotions on his LED mask though, with messages such as "kill you" and "hello darkness" frequently flashing across it. Ruiner can be played either with a controller or keyboard and mouse. We opted for the latter, but many other players find the controller to be more intuitive, so it will come down to a matter of taste. The game has a few more buttons than usual for the genre due to the number of abilities at your disposal. The sensitivity for both control schemes can be adjusted though, which is great. We also appreciate the UI options, such as showing or hiding enemy health bars and so on. We had an absolute blast playing Ruiner, but some players might find the unforgiving difficulty a little frustrating. Ruiner is a game that will punish you if you try to brute force your way through combat, instead of strategically using your abilities. However, there's nothing more satisfying than blocking a brutal barrage of bullets with your shield, dashing behind an enemy and hacking its brain, or slicing it to bits before stealing its weapon. The chaotic fights can sometimes result in cheap deaths, but you're back in action with the tap of a button thanks to the frequent checkpoints. Combat can become repetitive, but the sheer amount of variety in weapons and abilities helps keep things fresh. It's a pity the game is so short, as it absolutely oozes style, and we would have loved to see more environments like the hub area. Thanks for joining me for this Ruiner PC review. Remember to like, subscribe and share. Until next time.